welcome to Tennessee Informer. I'm your host, Dave Vance. Thank you for tuning in. Our guest tonight is Seth Griffith with Aerial Recovery Operations, an organization comprised of special operations veterans and first responders that use the skills and experience in disaster relief and try to stop human trafficking. First, it's time for updates and announcements. A late Veterans Day message. This past weekend, we remembered and honored our veterans for their service. As a veteran myself, I have a few thoughts on this. I appreciate the sincere gratitude expressed by so many, and it's good and right to honor our veterans. We often hear people say things like, thank a veteran or thank members of their family for your freedom. Historically, there is certainly some truth to that. All veterans took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. Some paid dearly to uphold that oath. Others came away unscathed, yet all potentially put their life on the line to uphold the rights and freedoms recognized in the Constitution. Unfortunately, Uncle Sam has become more like Uncle Joe Stalin that is. Since the end of World War II, the last war we were really allowed to fight and win, Uncle Sam, has sent our military to Korea and Vietnam to fight communists and spent 50 years fighting the Cold War to stop the spread of communism while allowing them to take over our institutions here. Now we have a communist running our government. They've completely taken over the Democrat Party and have many rhino allies. Ask yourself, are we as free as we were in 1945 or even 1975? Now all of our rights and freedoms are at risk from an out-of-control federal government. What the average citizen, veteran or not, needs to understand is that the greatest threat to our way of life is our federal government, despite the oaths those in government have taken to uphold the Constitution. Our freedoms won't be lost in some far-off battlefield. If they are lost, they will be lost here, and they will be taken by our federal government. So by all means, honor our veterans on Veterans Day, especially the seriously disabled, and remember the fallen and their families as well on Memorial Day. But more importantly, honor them by demanding all of our elected officials uphold the Constitution. That's the document all veterans place their life on the line to uphold. If you have an announcement from a conservative organization that you'd like announced on this show, please send information to tninformer.tv@gmail.com the Friday before the show. The Tennessee Committee for the Bill of Rights will hold their 21st Annual Bill of Rights Banquet Friday, December 15th at Trinity Chapel, 240 First Avenue, Dayton, Tennessee. This year's keynote speaker is Senator Janice Bowling. Paid reservations are $40 for adults, children under 12 or 20. Send check by December 1st to June Griffith, 265 Crestview Lane, Dayton, Tennessee, 37321. Meals will be provided by Evelyn's Catering. For good conservative talk radio, tune in to 105.3 WDXE Radio in Lawrenceburg. From 5 to 6 p.m. on Mondays for the Kip Capley Show, and Wednesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. for the local GOP radio show hosted by the chair of the Lawrence County GOP, Brandon Taylor, and Lawrence Sutton, the secretary of the Lawrence County GOP. And now on Fridays with free speech news featuring Lawrence Sutton and Chris Morris, the chair of the Giles County GOP and an SEC member. That also airs from 5 to 6 p.m. If you want our state to step up and push back on our overreaching, often unconstitutional federal government, visit tncss@weebly.com and learn more about the legislation we hope to get passed this session that creates multiple processes for nullifying unconstitutional federal actions. There's no cost. It's an informational site, but we would like for you to click on the Substack to sign up. We need as many people as we can to show support for this effort. Please talk to your state rep and state senator now and get their commitment to support this very important piece of legislation. And remember, two things. Nullification is a responsibility, not a theory. And our state legislature just 2 years ago declared their right and responsibility to nullify unconstitutional actions by any branch of the federal government with the passage of Senate Joint Resolution 9005. Now it's time to put some teeth in the 10th. And now it's time to welcome our guest, Seth Griffith. He's the Deputy Chief of Special Operations for the Aerial Recovery Group. He spent 20 years in the United States Air Force as a member of a Tactical Air Control Party and Joint Attack Controller, JTAC. He has a profound reservoir of experience honed in demanding and dynamic global arenas. Over the course of his military career, Seth executed 9 combat deployments and occupied pivotal roles, including Chief JTAC Instructor, Chief of Standardizations and Evaluations, Team Chief, and Operations Superintendent. Since his integration into the aerial recovery team in August 2021, Seth has undertaken numerous missions for humanitarian rescue, both on domestic and international fronts. His contribution has been integral in facilitating the delivery of aerial recovery's comprehensive training courses. His fervent commitment extends to his impassioned pursuit of aiding military veterans and first responders in their journey towards recovery from trauma. Through Aerial Recovery's Heal the Heroes initiative, he tirelessly endeavors to empower these individuals, fostering their return to a status of assets and role models within their respective local communities. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Glad to be on.
Well, it sounds like you've got quite a resume there. How did you get involved with this initially?
Yeah, a buddy of mine said, you need to meet Jeremy Locke. You guys will get along really well, kind of like two peas in a pod. And we had a couple of touch point meetings. And then in March of 21, Jeremy started talking to me a little more seriously, I would call it, about coming on with Air Recovery and helping grow what he and Brittany had already started, the two co-founders. And there's been no looking back.
So what are some of your main responsibilities?
Yeah, so some of my main responsibilities entail being communicative with our volunteer corps. I help run the Heal the Heroes program with Jeremy. I am very involved with making sure the operators are ready to go and help with the strategic vision. On a day-to-day, we're having lots of training calls. We're still developing and refining standard operating procedures. And we're looking at multiple countries even right now. So it's day-to-day, it's very busy. We do work remote, but we travel a lot too. I'm gone up to half of each month.
Wow. Now, has the core group grown a lot since you've been there, or pretty much the same players?
No, yeah, we've grown quite a bit. We started with primarily Jeremy, myself, and a couple other people, and we've grown to a staff of 8 now, to where we've got someone that's heading up our training. We have a chief of training, we have a chief medical officer, we have a chief of intelligence and technology, we have a director, we have a lead in communications. So we're growing and we're scaling because it's super important for us to get in a place to where we're able to put people out and get multiple teams going in different directions at the same time. So we're aggressively trying to make impact, not necessarily make work, but just make impact where impact is needed.
Right. So what are some of the more dangerous situations you guys have been involved with?
Oh gosh. Ukraine specifically comes to mind when you mentioned danger. Obviously there was what Russia's calling a special military operation. From there being Russian checkpoints to there being munitions flying in, around, landing, air raids, just the whole gamut over there. The elements alone too, the winters are really brutal. It's just one of the most interesting places I've been, and a lot of people don't realize like how large Ukraine actually is. But the gamut of risks over there was, as you can imagine, very large.
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead and let you finish.
I was going to say, that's just speaking specifically to Ukraine. We've responded to Pakistan when the floods happened, and there's a lot of Taliban activity over there. Obviously, then a third of the water was under. Or a third of the country was underwater. We do anti-human trafficking missions. Sometimes that is in a supporting role. Sometimes it's in a very direct role where we're going undercover. We responded to the earthquakes in Turkey in February of this year. There were aftershocks happening while we were doing search and rescue in buildings. And just the elements, in and of themselves were something to navigate. I can't even imagine being trapped for multiple days, inside of a large multi-family building that collapsed at 4 a.m. when that first major earthquake hit there in Hatay, right there on the Syrian border at the epicenters. One of the craziest things I've seen is how these buildings just fell over like someone just knocked Legos down.
Wow. back to Ukraine for a minute. You said Russian checkpoints. So you're talking about avoiding Russian checkpoints or having to deal with them
Yes.
at the checkpoints?
Well, dealing with there were certain checkpoints where you knew there were checkpoints that you had to avoid, and then there were just Russians in certain occupied areas where you had to avoid. There were wanting to hold key terrain, wanting to take out certain infrastructure, so you had to just be very careful how you maneuvered and not draw any extra attention to yourself or the team.
Okay. Did y'all have any actual interactions with them?
No interactions, luckily. And we just count our blessings. We actually didn't have a single person get hurt other than just, twisting of an ankle over there. And, there was a lot of things that could have gone bad. And we're just very blessed, very fortunate.
Absolutely. So what can you tell us about how you operate?
Yeah, we always operate when it comes to a natural disaster. We go in, we integrate in with the local emergency officials that we can and get authorization, let them know we're there, tell them what we do. Before we go, we do a lot of intelligence preparation to make sure that we are keyed in on the current pulse of what's going on with the atmospherics there. Almost trying to think of what I can say. We basically look at it almost militarily. We do a concept of operations briefing, which is military jargon for how we expect the operation to go. We do risk analysis. We talk to our team doctor, and we get certain medications for certain parts of the world. We go through an intel brief. We get local currency. Obviously, we sometimes carry a blood sheet or a paper that has different dialects. Potentially, if you're in different part, like in the Muslim part of the region of the world, there are different dialects. So sometimes you'll have 2 or 3 different dialects that say the same paragraph, saying hey, help me get to safety. We will pay you, stuff like that. But we're very calculated in where we go, when we go, and we always work with locals, with local authorities, and we don't try to be the American cowboys.
So what coordination, if you're going to go overseas like this, what coordination do you have to do? Is there anything you have to do through our government so that, are you like sanctioned, or do you have to do any interface with our federal government before you're allowed to go into these areas?
No, we're actually, so the only thing we really do is our own analysis. We see if we can actually get in there and be impactful, and then we go. We don't have the red tape to cut through. We don't have to ask for permissions or follow any certain rules of engagement. We have our own internal rules of engagement that we follow, obviously being humanitarian special operators. There's certain things we do, there's certain things we don't do. But in totality, we just try to always play chess when some people are playing checkers and just look at everything 3-dimensionally.
Right. So if you get in a bind over there, you're also on your own, right?
Yeah, we're kind of on an island, if you will. We do have some partners that we can call if we get in a bad situation, and we have availability for some help in that sense. I can't speak too specific on that, but fortunately, we've been so smart in how we do operate that we have different course of actions that we can enable, and we just plan very thoroughly, and that I think is really attributed to our success in our not having any mishaps or any near misses or incidents so far to date.
Right, and the countries are glad to see you there. You haven't had any problems with somebody not trusting or not wanting your involvement.
It's crazy because I've had people say, why are you here? Well, you left to come help. We really don't. We've really received very warm welcomes. They're just, shocked that we're there to help. And we come in a small team. We don't come in with 500 people, a large organization that would raise a red flag. It's, typically 3 to 4 dudes coming in that look similar to me that have medical gear. We obviously, when you go through customs, you have to go through the search, so they can see what we're coming to do. And we're very transparent and say, hey, we're just here to help. We want to help you. And we've not been turned away once.
Good. So I know that we hear a lot today about trafficking, and I guess you guys have dealt with that overseas as well as here. What can you tell us, as far as what people need to look for in regards to trafficking?
Yeah. So indicators. So people, first of all, let me take a step back. People don't think that it's happening here in Tennessee, in the Midwest, the United States. And I can tell you, if you can go open source right now and you can find reports that have been done, and every single county in Tennessee has had multiple reports of human trafficking. It's not just a metropolitan area. It happens rurally. And this is just what's reported.
Right.
So much goes unreported because the list is long. Some people they feel embarrassed, so they don't want to actually report. They want the stigma of it. And some people really don't know how, but just the reporting is very limited, and especially, in some of the more rural areas. It's kept a big secret. And that's domestically. In other countries, they don't talk about it because talking about it would hinder tourism from coming. It would hinder, their cash crop from coming in, which is tourism. So they aren't very upfront about the issue because they don't want to. They only want to show you the stuff you see on the postcards.
Right. So rural areas of Tennessee. So you say there's trafficking in every county. What does that look like? Are we just talking? Are we talking small numbers? Are we talking certain age group, certain demographic, or would people be surprised to find out not only who is being trafficked, but who's doing the trafficking?
I think people would be more surprised to find out how prevalent it is. And trafficking isn't always so. Modern day slavery it's not like the old days where you see chains and you see a slave master. Modern day slavery takes on several different forms. Some of it is employment. Some of it is obviously sexual trafficking. It's very disturbing in the underdeveloped countries with poorer economies, and the countries that do not have the resources, the funding for an actual dedicated unit inside their law enforcement to help with these problems. That's the problem is it's a complete circle, and it all comes down to economics, and it being, the second fastest growing trade industry other than drugs is, trading humans like commodities.
And that includes here in America.
Yeah. It doesn't happen as much, but it does happen. I would challenge anyone to go on open source and just search in, human trafficking in Tennessee, just for an example, and you'll be surprised what you can find real easy. It's just not really talked about. Don't really know why that is, but we need to start talking about it more. That's for sure. In the United States specifically, the interstate systems, when you look at them, it's a roadmap. It's the roadmap for our country. There are truck stops. There are the truck stops are the big one, I can say. There are parks, but the southern states, they're hit a little harder, obviously, because of our southern border, and us having an open border is like one of the worst. It's criminal,
right?
In my opinion, that name another country that's a superpower that has an open border.
Well, even a poor country that's not a superpower, if they have an open border for very long, they won't remain a country. They won't remain that country. That'll be something completely different, which is where we're headed.
Yeah, and it's the whole gamut with the border situation. It's drugs, it's people, it's criminals traveling back and forth. And, we've got to do something about it. It's not going to fix itself, and it's only going to get worse.
Do you think law enforcement has a good idea of the scope of it here in Tennessee?
I can't speak for the whole state. I can say that the departments, the precincts, if you will, they're not necessarily staffed. right? To be able to have dedicated officers to help fight this on a day-to-day. There are task forces that are being developed. HSI, they do a lot of investigations, but I feel like, and this is going to be opinion right here. I feel like it's the same situation where, you hear it'll take 3 hours for the police to respond to a minor accident. I feel like they're just everyone's overwhelmed. And how do you fix that?
Right.
And how do you fix the funding of that? How do you fix the awareness? How do you get more people dedicated to helping this problem? Because it is happening.
And HSI is
Nashville,
what?
It's happening everywhere. Homeland Security.
Okay, Homeland Security. Okay, all right. So when you're talking about trafficking, are we just talking about all forms of prostitution? I mean, are we talking about people who were forced into it? And by that I mean,
yeah.
I'm not saying somebody I know there's some people that just decide that's what they want to do. I don't know why, but that's what some decide. But we're talking about, when we say trafficking, we mean people who were coerced or tricked into something like that.
Lured under false pretenses. A lot of time it's jobs. It's to provide for their families. Think about a lot of laborers that come, just for a simple example, families that come up from Mexico and they earn a living, working very hard, and they send money home. People are lured from economically challenged regions to provide for the family. And in some instances, they actually will, sell a younger child in because it'll help pay for feeding their family for the rest of the year, potentially. It's very disturbing. And I don't understand why more people aren't talking about it.
Yeah. Well,
honestly.
So what are some of the indicators of trafficking, whether we're talking prostitution, whether we're talking labor trafficking, or whatever we're talking? What are some of the things to look for, some of the indicators?
Yeah, if you see someone that looks like they're not speaking for themselves, someone else is talking for them, if they don't have freedom of movement, if you ever watch someone that is very nervous in a situation, like, to me, public speaking comes out, right? You see someone, they get up and they talk and they turn red and they get the blotches. That's a very extreme example of, an indicator. But when you watch and you see that someone doesn't have freedom of movement, when you can tell they're nervous to talk, when something just isn't making sense, you see some people of differing ages, differing backgrounds. People sometimes just don't pause for a second and think. It's happening. I can tell you, Ubers and Lyfts. I don't know how many times I've stood out in downtown Nashville on Broadway or any of the streets, and you can pull out your phone on a corner, and you'll see cars come up and they've got their Uber, their Lyft light on, and ask you if you need a ride, and you're like, "No, I'm looking for Hector, who drives a silver Isuzu, or whatever it is." There was actually a story from here in Nashville throughout the draft that happened in 2019 where a woman got an Uber. She got offered a water, didn't take the water, but she was offered a mint, and she did take the mint. And she woke up in a container in Oklahoma with almost 50 other women. And the only reason that she was able to get out of that situation was she had tucked her phone into her cleavage. Is like I guess a habit she did when she drank and stuff like that. And when she woke up and she pulled the phone out, she couldn't believe what she saw, and she dialed 911 immediately. And that was from Nashville during the draft, Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow, and I've never heard about that one. That's crazy. I would have thought that would have been reported more than that.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to the stigma and the embarrassment of it. Some people don't, the same thing with rape. People don't want to talk about rape. It's not pleasant. Right. It brings up a lot of trauma. It brings up a lot of emotions. And some people get a label from that. And we need people to talk about it. We need people to talk about the awareness piece specifically, and about it being a problem. And another thing to talk about here, and this isn't like specific to Tennessee necessarily, but children are on the internet all the time. There are apps that are children games with disappearing messages, that there's no log of it. And sometimes children get, it happened to us with our son. Actually, he got someone in South America had him download WhatsApp so they could start sending pictures up back and forth. And I'm not going to go into detail on it, but like that struck really close to home, and that happened this summer. So, parents need to monitor what their children, monitor their content, monitor their social media. It's, they're going to hate it, but you know what? That's your job as a parent. It's not your job to be liked. It's not your job to, like Nick Saban said, if you want to be liked by everyone, don't be a leader or a parent, like sell ice cream, But when it comes to our own children, your parents need to be protective, and they need to be alert to what's going on and some of the methods that is used for grooming and for nefarious activities that happen. The internet is a dark, dark place. If you don't have to dig very deep to find that out. I mean, we all know it already.
Yeah, if you're a parent, it's not your job to be a friend. That can come later if you successfully raise your kids. But if you're trying to be their friend when they're kids, you'll do more harm than good in a lot of ways.
I'm sure that 10 years ago, parents said parenting has never been harder. And, that's 100% true of today with the challenges that parents are facing, the social pressures, the internet, some of this woke stuff, I'll call it. It's just parents are just up against so much more, now than they were 10 years ago, obviously, and it's only getting worse. The numbers suggest that, you feed someone something for a long time. We'll talk about just porn specifically, because porn breeds a lot of this, and there's a lot of trafficking in porn. It desensitizes people. It's dark, and then after a while, you need something different. You need more. You need a different kind of that. What you were watching is old. So it's just there's just so much evil out there, and so many people looking the other way, that parents just need to stay keyed in, because that's your family, and that that's your job. It's your duty as a parent.
Well, what should people do if they suspect trafficking?
Yeah, so you can reach out. Simple Google search will show you a hotline. You can get with local law enforcement. You can get with HSI. The problem that we perceive is that people, when they hit a roadblock, or they basically will tell one person, and then they don't follow up. They don't elevate it further if they need to, but it needs to be reported consistently. And that, I think, will help shed light on the problem we're facing and how bad it is. But again, like I said, the reporting is so low compared to what it really is.
Right. Now, so what is your organization allowed to do stateside anyway in terms of trafficking, or stopping trafficking, that is?
That's a great question. We get a lot, and it's a little, there's more layers, like in the onion, to peel back when it comes to doing stuff locally. You've got, local law enforcement. You've got the city, you've got the county, you've got state, you've got HSI, you've got FBI. So there's a lot of different layers in that. So what we're able to do is we're able to share information. We're able to hand stuff off. But right now, in the United States, because, we're not law enforcement officers, we're not deputized or anything, all we're allowed to do is basically collaborate and information share. Nothing direct action. We can do some training with local law enforcement and agencies, just like we do with some of our volunteers and some of our core staff for doing undercover operations, low visibility work, we call it. But I get so frustrated when we know what's going on out there, and it feels like you're just trying to wake people up to it in totality. I can't wrap my head around it. Everyone, if something happened in politics, if something happened with Trump, everyone in the news will be talking about it for days, right? We already see that.
Right.
It's like everyone wants people looking one direction, not the other. Can't figure it out. And I can't figure out why anyone would be okay or would try to say that this isn't an issue.
Well, we've seen over the last several years a lot of these trafficking groups broken up across the country. I mean, it's pretty common, pretty rare now to hear about traffickers being arrested or child porn rings or whatever. That happens pretty. So I would think more people would say, hey, yeah, this is definitely on the uptick, or we're at least finding out about it more often. But I just wonder if it's like a lot of things, it's, maybe who's involved with it at higher levels, that maybe that's why there's and sometimes seems to be a roadblock.
Yeah, it's, I would not be surprised if we found out that there was more involvement at levels that we didn't know. And I only say that because we've seen here in the Nashville area, there was an arrest, I think within the last 6 months, and there was a couple of people that were arrested, and it was just very disturbing what was going on. And these people were normal people, just like you and I. One was a soccer coach, I believe, that was respected. So I don't know what to say other than you don't know until you know.
Right.
And we're just wanting to share and wanting to raise the awareness. And we want to do everything that we can as an organization to help not only our organization, but collaborate and help other organizations get better as well, because it's going to take a lot of different people working in this space to make a difference and to make enough noise to where people don't feel comfortable doing it and will maybe think twice because they know people are being more aware and more vigilant and more information is getting out there, and that people are actually trying to make a difference in this and try to cut the serpent's head off eventually, hopefully.
Right. Now, do you guys have a little freer hand overseas with what you do?
Say that one more time.
Do you have a little freer hand in what you guys try to do overseas as far as stopping trafficking?
Yes, and that stems a lot from them asking us for help. They need funding. Like I was saying, some of the local authorities in other countries, they don't have the funds to do some of the investigations, some of the operations, some of the stings, if you will. Down in some areas we've worked in, I'm not going to mention them, they didn't have gas to put in their trucks to go arrest someone.
Good Lord. So
you can see, in these other countries, how the problem can get exacerbated like very quickly, especially if certain sections of government or law enforcement are part of the problem, because, if there's no principle just laying down the hammer, then people are going to resort to what they can get away with.
Right. All right. So, how are you guys funded? I think you had your annual fundraiser this past Friday. You want to talk about that a little bit and maybe give the audience an idea of, how they can help?
Yeah. Thank you. Our gala was last Friday, and it was amazing. It's our one big annual fundraiser that we do, and it helps us with putting money in the buckets for having, funds for rescue operations, for our Heal the Heroes program. We like I said before too, we don't have a product that we create. Our product is humanity. So when we do a mission, whether it's a human trafficking mission, which those, they're a little bit more expensive than some of the disaster response ones, just because we have to pay for other things that don't involve, a technical rescue or medical aid or stuff like that. But we have to come back and fundraise continually to have operations to go do it. And the whole time, like I've told you before, we know what's going on in multiple countries right now. So it's very important for us to solidify funding to try to help those people, and that we can't do that alone. We need people to help us with fundraising. We need, we have to have the gala each year, amazing partners that want to make a difference. And we found that there are people that continually want to give, and, they're getting a tax break because it's a charitable donation, and they can feel great about that. And we're very transparent with our larger donors. They get a donor report, which goes into more specific details about certain operations and how the money was spent as far as, the anti-human trafficking missions specifically. We do the same thing for disaster response missions as well, but we want to be very transparent and we want to show how the money is spent. And it also helps to show like how expensive it is too, because it's something that's, it's cyclical. We fundraise, we go on mission, we fundraise, we go on mission until we can get our funding in a place to where we've got money sitting there ready. It's going to continually be in our head because we know what's going on and we have to fundraise to go do work. We never had to do that when we were active duty. We just had money and we went to work. Now we have to kind of do both. We had to shift from being operators and operational centric to being operators, but to get to being an operator, you have to be business development. You have to be strategic, doing the relationship stuff. You have to vet people. You have to have your processes in place, and you have to plan it. You have to plan it. You have to plan for the pennies.
So, is the word getting out as far as raising the funds?
Yeah, I think so. We have the gala each year, and then there's people that go on our website and they donate, $10, $20 here and there. And, we've not been around super long, so we don't have a super big following yet. So thank you for having us on.
Oh, absolutely.
Really appreciate it. Seriously. Need to get the word out there, but until we get a little bit more recognized, I guess,
right,
for the great impacts that we've done. I mean, we've rescued over 8,000 people.
Wow.
Since 2020.
Now, the rescued, you're talking about combined rescued from disasters, trafficking, everything combined, or is that just trafficking?
That's combined, over 8,000.
Well, that's quite a few in 2 years. I mean, that's excellent, yeah. And I'm glad
to have you on. A lot of those numbers came from Ukraine. Obviously, when we first went in there, there was no plan to move any of the orphans. And there is, Ukraine has, if not the most, they're one of the most per capita orphans as far as a country. Very hard conditions over there. And, we just weren't willing to just sit by and do nothing. And then, once, we, I won't say we shifted, but once, we had evacuated the orphanages that were asking for evacuation, then we shifted to, non-combatant evacuation, basically people in contested areas under Russian aggression where they were wanting to be moved. We would move them. And a lot of times it was just them, maybe almost 100 pets too, by the way, that we rescued in Ukraine alone. Because some of these people, they would leave their apartment, their house, whatever it was, with a plastic bag, maybe a backpack, and a pet. Wow. Sometimes just a bag. And they left their life, pretty interesting to think about, if you had a couple minutes to pack up what you could carry and leave very quickly, and you didn't know how far you have to walk with it. So like, what can I bring?
Right.
Definitely bringing the kids, definitely bringing, the cat, the dog, maybe a ham sandwich, but it's something that Americans don't have to think about, which gives them that very American lens where they kind of, is that really a problem? Doesn't seem like a problem to me. Well, it's a problem for a lot of other people in the world, because they don't have Mexico to the south, Canada to the north, and large bodies of water on the east and west. But the rest of the world needs a lot of help.
Right.
That's for sure.
So you have the one annual fundraiser. People can donate on your site. What you guys have like a target goal for what you would like? And obviously what you do from year to year will vary. But do you have like a target goal of, hey, if we had X number, we would, based on what we've done in the last 2 years, we would feel comfortable that we could continue to maintain the level of service that we have so far?
Yeah, as far as the disaster response, the human trafficking, and our Heal the Heroes program, it's right around 5 million annually for all three of our core pillars.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a lot, but in a lot of ways, it's not. I mean, that could be, if more word got out about it, I think you guys would get there. Especially, all of you guys are, veterans or first responders, and those are, people that are highly valued in our society, and that's a good thing. And so I would think that, hopefully we can get you to that level fairly soon.
One of the biggest costs for us is the airfare and the fees along with that, luggage fees with us bringing in special equipment, just specifically for Ukraine.
Right.
We spent around $750,000 between airfare and then excess luggage fees going back and forth, flying people from anywhere in the United States into, where we were staging and then moving in and then the return flight home. It's just not cheap to do this work. But I tell you what, the impact that we're able to make is really big, and it's helping a lot of heroes, a lot of people from our Heal the Heroes program. They want to continue serving, and we're giving them that outlet to do it and kind of still use their skills and be a valuable asset and serve.
So when you went over to Ukraine, did you go over there? How long were you able to stay at a time? Because you only had so much money.
Yeah, the longest time I was there, I think, was 3 weeks. So I was going through a vicious cycle for the better part of four months, where I would be over there for a bit, come home for a couple weeks rest, and go back. Was actually over there, and it's crappy. I was over there when my wife's father died. And she had texted me, and we had secure ways of doing that. And she had sent me a message that, said my dad is just breathing out of basically reflex now. And then when she was trying to call me, and I knew what she was trying to call me and tell me, I couldn't answer the phone because I was in a bunker and there was an air raid going on. And the last thing I was going to do was let my wife hear, me talking with air raid sirens going on, when I'm just wanting to, if nothing else, just let her cry and be listening to her on the phone because her father just passed, but I couldn't even do that. So it's pretty crazy. It's hard on the families. And what Jenna is doing with her book, Service and Soul, which, by the way, she just announced yesterday, she's a #1. She's an international bestseller. So,
oh, wow.
Pretty amazing stuff. And she's going to be helping out so many families, because behind any first responder or any veteran, there's a family back there that is picking up the pieces when they're gone. And, the women behind men that are serving, whether it's emergency service or, veterans or, guys doing what we do, it's a lot to deal with, and they deserve so much acknowledgement, and they have all my respect.
Well, we may have to have her on the show sometime. So the book is already on the bestseller list?
The book is already out, bestseller list. You can get it on Amazon. It's called Service and Soul, and it's amazing. I'm so proud. I'm trying not to cry right now. It's so needed. It's so needed because so many families suffer from service, veterans deploying. You deployed. Did you have a family when you were serving?
Yep, absolutely.
How hard was it on your family?
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not the easiest lifestyle. It's stressful. It's demanding. It's not a job. It's a profession of arms.
Right. Absolutely.
So, it's more a lifestyle than a job when it comes to serving in our armed forces, and the women and the children that are left behind and do pick up all the slack when people are out serving. They deserve to be lifted up.
So what do you guys have anything, obviously you just had your gala and your fundraiser, but do you guys do any kind of other outreach to the community so that they know about you? I mean, is that something that you guys have time to do between all your deployments? Is there like an open house type thing or anything that you guys have done?
So no, not an open house type thing. We have a volunteer corps, and we do a lot of hikes here locally. We're looking for ways to get more out in the community. We're networking with more VSOs, veteran service organizations like Operation Stand Down, Creative Vets, in downtown Nashville, Folds of Honor, all great organizations that are helping the veteran and the first responder community. So we're looking at ways to incorporate more and kind of wave, the aerial recovery flag, especially in our own backyard, Nashville, Tennessee, to try to gain support. People know who we are, or if they want to get involved, we want to give them that outlet.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like a great organization. You do great work, very needed, very worthwhile to donate to, time or money for that matter. And congratulations on your wife's book. It sounds like it's already doing great, and That's good. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on, and we really appreciate having you on. I'd like to have you back.
Yeah, I would love it.
Well,
Thanks so much.
Thank you for being with us. I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch our program. Please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe buttons, as well as the notification bell to stay informed about our upcoming shows. You can now listen to us on podcast at Spreaker.com. Just do a search for Tennessee Informer and hear the audio-only versions of your favorite episodes. You can also download the Spreaker app for Android or Apple phones to listen while on the go. Also, please take a moment to check out and follow our Facebook page at TN Informer. We'll be posting a lot of news and information on there, as well as on our website, tninformer.com, where you can also sign up for a weekly newsletter. Share us with your friends so they can stay up to date and in touch with all the conservative political news and issues concerning our state. The Tennessee Informer always strives to bring you only the very best guests, and next week is no different. Be sure to join us next Monday when our guest will be author and nationally recognized conservative activist Dr. Carol Swain to talk about her new book, The Adversity of Diversity, which examines the negative impact of DEI programs. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.